Hi, I'm Joe Hoskins. I'm here to do my instructional strategies presentation. I looked at the 50 instructional routines to develop content and literacy and read through every one of the routines and picked one I felt is by far the most important. Before I get to the strategy, I want to explain a little bit about the students I've worked with in my job. I'm a teacher assistant at a high school working with special education students. These students are what I believe grouped together by their educational levels, which means in a classroom where you can have 8 to 10 to 12 students, you can have LD students in there, ED, and you can have some children in there with autism, which creates quite a challenge. With this group, I tend to try to, as I look at them, is divide them into 3 groups, basically. Is you have one group, a third of them basically, that are going to work hard, they're easy to engage, and they're going to complete all the work that's assigned to them to the best of their ability. You have another group on the other end of the spectrum that I believe is mostly the ED kids, which is the most important group in that classroom. These are students that are attention seeking, they're hard to engage, and if you don't engage them, they can be so disruptive that you basically can't teach the class. Then you have the middle group, which can kind of go either way, and it depends on, how good a job we do of creating interest, engaging them, and having reinforcements to get them working. So the strategy I'm looking at and I feel is most important is chapter 15, interest surveys, questionnaires, and interviews. And the reason I say it's so critical with this group is if you don't get their interests to start with, or you don't know what their interests are, and you can't build on those and have lesson plans that are interesting to them, then it doesn't matter. You can have the best lesson plan on earth, and it's going to do you no good. So we have to create interest in what we're doing. And to create interest, we want to do that the first week of school. When we get them in there, so we start to learn our students and find out what their interests are, because quite honestly, when it comes to reading and writing, most of them don't do that very well. A portion of the class will and have some confidence, but probably more than half have no confidence in reading and writing. They've had a lot of failures, shortcomings. They've seen people fall behind their age group for years, and they feel they don't have confidence in their reading and don't feel they read well, and in essence, don't like to read. So it's very important to engage them. And I think with any students, and why this is so important with not just special ed kids, as any students, is even me, when I read things that I can connect with, I have interest, I see where this information is important, I can use this information at some point. It's not just something I'm reading to get a grade. So here we go. The first step, actually I'm going to put a first step in before we get to the strategies first step, and that is to basically, before we get into reading and writing, is explain to them and talk to them why is it important to them. There has to be a connection. These students, quite honestly, they're not on diploma track, and they're not motivated by getting a good grade on an assignment. They're not motivated by getting a good grade on a report card. They know they're not on diploma track. They know that the classes that are in with me, they're not getting high school credit for. So that's one more reason to engage them. So we need to talk to them about why is reading and writing important? Is it important to become better readers and writers and be able to connect it? What's in it for them? And with this group, we try to tie it into transition, and I'll put it out to them. Why is it important? Let them tell me. And first of all, get them engaged to where the content we're getting ready to go into, there's a benefit to them for it. And that's a very, very important first step. All right, the next thing we want to do is there's surveys and questionnaires. The book has one that is pretty good, but all these have to be tailored to your specific target group. And the one they put in here is pretty short. It's 20 questions. You don't want to make it too long, and I feel that's about the appropriate length. And it's just the starting point. And basically the one they put in here is reading preferences checklist. But what I would also do, because I really don't think many of my students read that much, I would put reading preferences checklist and interest. If there's a subject that they're interested in, to include that also and check it. So we look down through some of the ones I checked or just looked off as information about books about history, books, magazines about sports, magazines about cars and trucks, books about animals, poetry books, cartoons, comics, graphic novels. Okay, that's a good starting point, but that's all it is a starting point. And what is so important is we have to be able to differentiate instruction with these students. You may find that when we go through the checklist, there's some common threads where we have a certain number of students, maybe 5 students are interested in a certain subject. And when we're doing group instruction, maybe we can, develop our content toward those target subjects. However, that may not connect everybody. What's so important with this group, we have to be able to differentiate instruction, which makes special ed such a difficult, it's hard to teach. It takes a lot more work. And you'll see as we go forward what has to happen for each child if we're really going to create interest and really engage them into reading. So we go through the checklist, quick checklist, 20 areas of interest. So at that point it doesn't stop because there's more information we need to know. So at that point we're going to have interviews, and it does require taking the time to interview each student. And we have questions here that you can ask that are really good. And it talks about what they think makes a good reader, and tell me about good reading experiences that you have. Tell me about bad reading experiences you have. Do you like to read, and different things like that are good knowledge. But where I want to really dig into, if a student checks off books and magazines about sports, you happen to have more information, okay? So they like sports, so we're going to go ahead and put some reading content about a story about hockey. Well, if they like basketball and their favorite team is the Cleveland Cavaliers and their favorite player is LeBron James, hockey's not going to engage them. You have to find out and dig in. What do they really like? What really interests them? And you can go through all these, magazines about cars and trucks. You can't just do it about every car, trucks, try to narrow it down. Maybe there's a certain model. Maybe there's a certain kind of car. Maybe it's racing cars. There's so many different categories. Find out how to engage that child and what their true interests are. And you can go all the way through it. Books about animals. You just can't put books about every animal possibly. There could be animals, maybe animals in Australia, maybe reptiles, maybe mammals. You put something on about whales and they're interested in reptiles, you're not going to engage them. You're not going to create the interest that you need, and we're pretty much wasting our time. So it's very important to do the checklist, take the time, ask the questions, and really find out what their interests are. So then requires more work, okay? It's very hard with this class because I have another class talking about autistic children, and they can be real narrowly focused with their interests, okay? And we have such a diverse group, it's very difficult to have one reading content and one strategy and reach them all. It really, to engage them, especially initially, you have to just about differentiate instruction for each one of them. And what that means, finding reading material for each one of your students that interests and engage them. And that takes work, and it takes a little time, but it's well worth it. There's all kinds of other questions on here that are great, but it just depends on your group of students, what grade level you're in, just the makeup of your students. But this is such an important strategy, and like I said before, if we don't do it and we don't take the time and put the effort into it, we're not going to engage these kids, and especially these special education kids, but they have low self-esteem and quite frankly don't have a work ethic, and most of the time just cannot connect, why am I doing this for? They're not getting a diploma, and another important thing that we can do is when we're doing these checklists, and it's something very important with this target group, and it can be with any group of any age, is already be thinking about transition goals. We find out someone likes animals and really has a love for animals. They get up in high school, if we have them on a transition plan where they're learning to mop floors or sweep floors, and they love animals, maybe there's plenty of opportunities out in the community where they can get a job at the zoo. They can work at veterinary places. They can work at places that house dogs and cats like a hotel. There's opportunities where they can have jobs that relate to their interests and where they have much better chance of being successful. So it's not just about engaging them in reading. It opens windows and doors and opportunities for many things that could last all their life. And of course, reading and writing is one thing that will, but the transition goals and getting these students interested and motivated to go out and get a job is something they like. Because quite frankly, most of them in high school, they're working at McDonald's or Hardee's or somewhere, and it's just a job, get a little spending money. If we can find out what their true interests are, transition goals is another byproduct that will greatly benefit these students. I'd like to close with saying again that we have to generate the interest, and that is the most important instructional strategy in that book. Without that, if we cannot communicate to them what's in it for them, none of the rest of what we do is going to matter. We're going to get minimum results. But if we do that, then my job as a teacher is, number one, to create interest. Number two, to engage them. Number three, to create content that is interesting, is engaging, but they're learning from it. And when they learn from it, they start to get their self-confidence and self-esteem up. And when we do that, that's when we're truly inspiring those students to where they can, and so many of them have so much ability, they don't realize they have it. That as teachers, we can truly inspire our students to be greater than they ever thought they could be. Thank you for your time.